I'm very excited to be here today talking to my friend Lynn Good, Chairman, President, and CEO of Duke Energy. Fortune magazine lists her amongst the most powerful women in business, and Forbes magazine calls her one of the world's 100 most powerful women. Lynn brings a unique perspective on driving innovation and leading in sustainability and the role that culture plays. I'll also mention that about a year and a half ago, Duke joined forces with Accenture and more than 500 companies to sign the CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion, the largest CEO-driven business commitment to advancing diversity and inclusion within the workplace. So Lynn, thanks again for being here today.
Julie, it's really my pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
So let's start by really setting the scene for the current business environment for Duke Energy. So what are the most pressing issues that you are seeing today, and how are you navigating those issues as you continue to lead Duke as a leader in the field?
Julie, our industry is going through transformation from the way electricity is produced to the way it's delivered to the expectations of our customers. And I think about those winds of transformation. It's technology, it's customer expectations, and policy is always an important part of our business. So we are navigating through transformation by keeping our eyes focused on delivering value to customers and making smart investments, which in this stage of our evolution centers around solutions for customers, our delivery system, and then clean energy. And we believe if we can stay focused on delivering value, not only to customers, but investors, that will migrate this transformation in a way that delivers great value.
As you think about the transformation, that immediately brings to mind for me innovation. And so, it's something that everyone's talking about. And I know you have an innovation lab in Charlotte. So what does innovation mean to you?
Innovation is a big word. And I would say simply, Julie, it's change. It's change of historic practices. It's introducing change for new things we ought to be doing, always focused on delivering value and value to our investors. And so when you think about transformation in our industry, we have to be innovating processes, we have to be innovating technology, we have to bring new skills into the company, and importantly, we have to focus on culture. A culture that is able to keep changing and embracing continuous learning in a way that will lead us through this transformation. So change is the simple word. Innovation is an important word, and certainly important to any company going through transformation.
So when I hear you talk about the industry, one of the things that immediately comes to mind is the significant role that innovation has played in finding new sources of energy to really kind of bring them together effectively and efficiently at scale. In your mind, what role is innovation playing in these areas? What does it really matter beyond processes and how you're operating the company?
There is a great deal of interest today, Julie, around how energy is produced, and I would say more so than it has been over many decades. You could say that it is a result of our keen focus on environmental matters. You could say it's a keen focus on productivity and innovation and change. But the fact that we have more technologies available today to generate power than we did decades ago is just an indication. But to make it work, there has to be innovation on the way we serve our customers. There has to be innovation on the way we operate our assets. There has to be innovation on the way we do our work, because we're putting new technologies to work with capabilities that are very different than what we've historically managed. So it gives us an opportunity to innovate across a broad spectrum of our business.
As you know, we've just released research that shows that when companies have a culture of equality, a workplace environment in which everyone feels like they can advance and thrive, innovation actually increases. And why do you think that there is this link, from your perspective, between a culture of equality and innovation?
I think there's a direct linkage, Julie, because you think about innovation. What you're trying to do is empower employees to bring their creative ideas and have an environment where those creative ideas are vetted. Sometimes we fail and fail fast, but sometimes we find, a gem of an idea that really takes the business in a direction of great momentum. So think about a culture of equality where there's great respect, where teams have an opportunity to work together, where everyone has a voice, where there's leaders who listen and who are empowering and engaging with employees. Then you have the fertile ground for those great ideas to take root. And we're spending a lot of time at Duke on design thinking, on agile ways of working, and those small teams. That is truly a culture of equality in those small teams. You're bringing voices together. You're giving them an opportunity to develop their ideas into products in a rapid way. And I think the innovation goes hand in hand with those techniques and with that culture of equality that you're talking about.
Well, that's very well said, and I feel really privileged to be, spending time with you and your team at Duke and getting to see firsthand, what you are doing. And by the way, I like the fail fast but quickly succeed as well. So
our investors care about this.
Exactly,
yes.
We like them both, right?
Yes.
So for a minute, just staying on this topic of equality, it is well known that Duke is really got an incredibly diverse workforce and that you reflect the communities that you're working in. How critical do you think diversity is when you think about the challenges your industry is facing?
Diversity, I think, goes hand in hand with this discussion we're having, Julie, around culture of equality. Because if we have that respecting culture of equality that allows everyone who has a voice to bring their best ideas to the table, and then we infuse that with diverse voices and diverse ideas, and it's an area where those ideas can flourish, I think there's a business case around innovation for diversity. I think as I think about the transformation in my industry and the fact that my customers are expecting more from me, customized solutions, they're expecting me to understand the way they live and the way they want to use energy. What is more powerful than a diverse workforce who understands customers really well, who reflect the customer base that I serve? And so I think, again, the business case for bringing diversity into our workplace is just extraordinary. And I hope it delivers, and know it'll deliver great value as we go forward.
Well, I'm very confident that you at Duke are going to be actually a great example of that business case. Now, as we think about leaders, right, so you're living this every day, you're working on the diverse workforce, you're thinking about the culture of equality while you're driving innovation. So what advice would you give leaders who want to advance that culture of equality, right, who maybe are not as far along as Duke is? How can leaders make sure they're bringing the diversity, having the voices heard, and really setting up that culture?
I'm a big believer in leadership, Julie, as I know you are. And of course, leaders need to do the traditional things of defining a purpose and setting a clear picture of expectations and value. But I think what we're talking about here also requires a keen focus on behaviors. Behaviors of those in the leadership and in the workforce to say, do I have an attitude of respect? Am I listening to voices? Am I really a good listener myself and a driver of change? And at Duke, we talk about a leadership imperative called Inspire Our Employees. And we believe inspiration doesn't occur in a conference room with a PowerPoint. It occurs in the field. It occurs when you're engaging, when you communicate, when you solicit feedback and ask for good ideas, when you celebrate change and innovation. You check and adjust with those employees if you hear feedback on perhaps we need to do something a different way. And so I think it's really important that the leaders look for behaviors that create that environment and that they seek feedback in the field, on the ground, engaging their workforce. You're trying to empower. And empowerment is what's going to lead the innovation, drive the innovation that we need.
I love that idea because inspiring leaders people want to follow. What do you see your best leaders doing when they're not using the PowerPoint and they're in their field to inspire people to have them feel like they are empowered?
Julie, I don't know that there's a silver bullet on this, and we are on a journey at Duke Energy. I think it starts with leaders creating an environment, leaders who are engaged with their workforce, leaders that are soliciting feedback, leaders that are good listeners, leaders that are bold to embrace change, that are taking advantage of these tools and techniques of design thinking and agile work processes to build some momentum so that employees see that opportunity to really contribute and they see their work directly impacting the business. I think it's having the right skills. I think at times our workforce needs not only training to embrace some of these ideas, but we're bringing new skills into the workforce around technology and around capabilities that will lead change into the future.
Is there some way that you approach sort of, meeting that need to ensure you've got the new skills and that you're bringing people along as well? How do you approach that?
I think workforce development has become increasingly important, Julie, really around a tight labor market and also the search that all of us have for skills that are going to help us be successful in a period of transformation. So we are spending a lot of time on workforce development, whether it's in community colleges, whether it's in the university system, whether it's external hiring that we believe will bring the right capabilities. We're not only hiring for subject matter expertise, but we're also hiring for what I'd call behavioral attributes, attitude, curiosity, people who are motivated to change, people who are excited about what the future holds and have that kind of metabolism to keep going. And so I think it's all of those things and continuing to try to refine the workforce in a way that'll lead us into the future. I also think development of people is important, developing leaders in a way that gives them the confidence. And so we spend a lot of time rotating leaders. We spend a lot of time on development programs that really give them an opportunity to refine their skills and practice their very best.
Is there any advice to someone starting out that kind of, as you look back from the best advice you receive, and as you look forward in terms of a world that is about constant innovation, that has a lot of change? So any advice to the we have 2/3 of our 465,000 people are millennials. Any advice you'd like to share?
Julie, my advice is simple. Keep going, always stay on a steep learning curve, and bring your very best to the office every day. If you do that, you'll not only flourish and continuously learn, but you'll be noticed. And that'll give you opportunities to grow and develop.
Well, that is great advice. So thank you again, Lynn, for being with us today. And really exciting, and I can't wait to see what you and Duke do together in the years ahead.
Very good. Thank you so much. My pleasure, Julie.